This year we tried some of these red Belgian peppers from Baker Creek, and I have never seen so many peppers on a plant as we have this summer. We've been eating these things for probably 6 weeks now, and they just keep coming back and coming back. I mean, this raised bed here has, I think, 9 plants in it, and it's just unbelievable the number of peppers. Now, they're nice red pepper. They're sweet, but they're not a real big thick-walled pepper. But anyhow, we always make this pepper spread, roasted pepper spread, and figured I'd try them this year because we seem to have a lot of them. Now we're doubling up on the batch, so I picked a little over 12 pounds of peppers there to get going, and you can see there's still a ton of them on the plants. So first thing I have to do is get the grill fired up. Then we wash the peppers and get out some paper bags that we've got laying around. And you also need a couple tomatoes, and those are, some of the few tomatoes we did get to turn red. So we just kind of wrapped them up in aluminum foil. We're going to decide to just roast them in the aluminum foil just to keep the mess from getting all over the grill and having them fall apart. So we got them wrapped up, and we got 2 white onions you need from the garden, and then a little package of garlic. In the meantime, the coals are all ready, and you want to get a real good hot, set of charcoals in there to roast the peppers on. And you can do them in the oven as the recipe says. Actually, I'll post the recipe in the description below. But we like to do it over the charcoal or over wood fire because the spread actually comes out to be a very tasty spread when you add that little bit of charcoal flavor to it. So it does have a much better taste doing it this way than when you do them in the oven. So I got everything on there just starting to roast up, and you have to just keep turning the peppers and try to get every square inch of them as black as you can, kind of burn that skin up. The blacker you get it, the easier it comes off and the more flavor that they have. So I just, sat there and watched them for a while, and the hottest spot was in the middle of the grill, so I just, worked on blackening them up first, and then I just moved some of the other ones in as, I went along. And you can see I threw the tomatoes and the garlic and the packages on there also. So once you get the peppers, they're starting to get soft now, and they're all scalded up, and you have to take them off and put them in a paper bag. So I just had some little bags, and I threw a couple at a time in because they're, not really big peppers. And you want to make sure that you got the bag sitting on something because a lot of moisture comes out, and they're extremely hot, so you can, rip right through the bottom of the bag. So, I put some in a bag and then move some more to the center and just get them all grilled up, black it up and roasted. And it's a time-consuming project here, but it just adds so much extra flavor. And I mean, there you can see just the kind of juice that comes out of them as they start, heating up. So this, I probably spent a good half hour, 45 minutes here trying to get all these peppers roasted up. And we doubled up on the 2 batches, so we're doing a double batch here. And when they're all done, I just kind of weighed them to make sure we're in the ballpark for the total amount of the 12 pounds of peppers. And then comes time to start cleaning everything up. And the peppers, when you take them out of the bag about 10-15 minutes later, they're still warm, but at this point in time they're very easy to remove the skin on. That charred skin just kind of pulled right off of them. It does take a little bit of time to get them all pulled apart, and cut the pieces that top out, and then try to get all the seeds out too. And basically what we do is just, open them up there and just try to scrape them all out and get as many seeds out as you can. You will get a couple in there, and I mean, they really don't hurt the flavor any. So, we just try to clean them up the best we can, and, just throw them in a pot and go on to the next one. And this is about the biggest time-consuming part of the, making this spread. So while they're, my wife's working on cleaning them up, I got the onions, and you got to take all the burned and charred outer layers off of them. And it's just amazing the smell that these onions have after you roast them like that. It just takes 2 small onions like this, and you clean up the burnt stuff off them, and then you go back, and it says to chop them fairly small, as small as you can, and they're a little bit soft to work with now, so it's kind of hard to get a perfect chop to them, but I just keep hacking away at them until I get something that looks pretty as small as I can get it. So here's the what the onions look like. 2 small onions, and then we had the garlic we wrapped up in foil too, so it wouldn't fall through the grill, and that roasted up nice. And trying to clean that up, you can just you can just about cut the end off and squeeze it out, but I decided to mess with it a little bit and try to scrape it out, and it was pretty soft and gooey there, coming out roasted, but smells really great. So same thing with the garlic. You have to try to chop that up into some as smaller pieces as you can. So kind of hard because it's kind of gooey and stuff to work with, but you can get it fairly small. And then the tomato, same thing. They roasted up nice, and it's once you get them roasted, the skin comes off pretty easy. So what you basically have to do is remove the skin and get the core out of them, and then try to scrape away as many seeds as you can. Kind of impossible to get them all out, but just work at it and try to get as many as you can out, because the tomato seeds can actually make something a little bit bitter. Here it is, just cleaning up the tomatoes, and luckily we did have enough turned red that we got a couple to eat this year, and did have some to actually make this spread with. So there's the basically it's two 1-pound packages of tomatoes that we had put together and started with. So there's the everything else that goes in there, and wife's still working on the peppers. They take a while to do, and finally we got them all done and ready to go. And then you have to wash up your jars and get them in a pot, start heating them up, get them ready to sterilize them and get going. And these new lids, you just have to wash them in hot soapy water with the BPA-free ones. So then I decided to break it up into 4 batches in the food processor. So I just took, a quarter of the peppers and a quarter of the tomatoes and put it in there. And then, we just ran the food processor for a couple of seconds. And that basically purees everything up and mixes it together real good. So, like I said, in the end, we wound up doing breaking it up into 4 batches, which it makes it come out a lot smoother than if you try to put everything in at once and do one big batch. Even though the food processor will handle it, I think it does a better job, breaking it down. So there's another batch, getting ready, and then when that's all processed, you put it in a pot. We got a sauce pot that's pretty tight fit. It could have been a little bigger, but you put all the tomatoes and peppers in the sauce pot, and then you add the sugar that the recipe calls for. Like I said, we doubled this up, so we're doing double on everything here. But I will post a link to the recipe. Then you need a coarse salt, so we just use kosher salt, when it calls for coarse salt. And a red wine vinegar, so I added that, and then some fresh chopped basil that we just picked. You put that in there, and then finally in goes the onions and the garlic that was previously chopped up into small pieces. So now that everything's in the pot, just start mixing it, and you really wind up standing here mixing it for well over an hour. I think I stood there for about an hour and a half. You have to just keep stirring it up. If you stop for a second, everything starts bubbling, and these big globs come just popping out of the pot, going all over everything. So, basically this is just one of the little pain in the neck things you have to do. But I had to stir it constantly until it came to a boil. There you can see it's just starting to boil. And then cook it down for, close to another hour on top of that, just to get it to start thickening up. And once it gets to a consistency that you're happy with, it's time to start filling the jars. And, you saw that they were put in there and preheated, so they've been boiling for a little while, and they're all sterilized and ready to go. And from this point on, you really have to be careful about getting burned, because everything is really scalding hot. So, now it just comes time to fill the jars, and the recipe says that you get 5 of the 8-ounce jars out of it, but usually we get a little bit more. So I didn't have enough of the 8-ounce jars to finish it up, so I actually had to use some 12-ounce jars that I had laying around. Then once you get them full, you go back with that little headspace gauge and try to get it as close to the 1/4 inch headspace that it calls for in the recipe. And then I take a damp paper towel and just wipe off the rims, just in case you got anything on them while you're filling them. You try to be careful filling them, but you never know. And then the lids that were washed in hot soapy water go on next. And these are the BPA free lids. And you should always follow the lid manufacturer's recommendations for what to do with them. So the lids are in place, and then it's in a matter of putting the rings on. I like to just kind of start them on and get them screwed pretty much all the way down. And then I'll go back, once I get all the rings started, and use one of those ball hot mitts there for tightening the lids. And I just kind of, snug them up to the proper tightness for putting in the water bath. So you just have, you have to be careful about not getting burned at these points. And, it's back into the water bath for all the jars. I was just able to squeeze, all these jars into the 1 canner batch. So, and then, you can see those 2 taller jars that I used. It's not quite enough water to cover them by the inch that you need. So I just added a couple containers full of water just to, make sure I had that inch over the jars. And I did get a little bit to have later and enjoy. So get the water up to a boil, and then you start the timer. Now the recipe calls for 10 minutes, but I added 5 minutes because I have a couple of the larger jars in there with an extra 4 ounces. So I let it time out, and then you shut off the fire and take top off and let it cool down for a couple minutes. And then I'll just take the jars out and put them on some wood racks to allow them to, start cooling. And at that point, you hear them start popping right away as the lids make a seal. So pretty much, I just thought I'd share this with you. It's one of our favorite recipes, and there they are the next day. I, took them and I washed everything up and labeled them, and they're ready to go in the root cellar. But, it's basically one of our favorite recipes, and, I think it's a real great tasting product that you can't find anywhere else. So, I just thought I'd share this with you to show you, from the garden to the root cellar. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.